the home of the common Joe and the common Sally in the know, even more so than all those media talking heads.
It's the day after the Alamo Bowl, and the meltdown has already started. Let me preface this by saying that not all Oklahoma fans feel this way, and I don't necessarily feel this way, but there's a contingent of people out there that are already talking and making noise about Brent Venables may indeed not be the man to lead the Oklahoma Sooners into the future of college football. Let's talk about it. Let's get her done, right? And here they come once again, right on in. It's the Outlaw Posse now in effect. In today's Four Horsemen shoutouts go to Sheldon Lamy, Eric Taco Marino, Billy Townsend, and Heath Stokes from Mount Up, Saddle Up, ready to go and help us with today's college football invasion. And if you want your badge, you want to get deputized like these guys and possibly get your random Four Horsemen shoutout as they just did, as well as possibly be the comment of the day, which is coming later in the show. It's not but $2.99 a month. That's 75 cents a week. That's just a half a bottle of water for the Outlaw. You'll get your badge, you'll get deputized, and you'll be in the Outlaw Posse. I can also be reached on Twitter at OCF Productions. Now, getting right to it here. Seems like got a little backbiting going on. And this ain't me trying to steer the pot, so before you get some Oklahoma fans in here saying, don't talk about our team, you're an Alabama guy, just you worry about Alabama, this is stuff that's been brought to my attention. People are sending me messages because I do a lot of Oklahoma content as well as Alabama content. And I took a few notes here, old school style. People like it when I do that. And first off, this was the first start ever for Jackson Arnold. Yes, he was a 5-star quarterback coming out of high school. But every single quarterback throughout history, for the most part, and there might be some rare exceptions out there, maybe Johnny Manziel and that kind of deal, but even Johnny Manziel had some off games, although it wasn't against Alabama. He got our ass pretty good. But as a true freshman, your very first start comes in a bowl game, and your offensive coordinator that you're used to, Jeff Levy, is gone. I think this was to be expected, in my opinion. Now, what did I think y'all was going to have 6 turnovers? No. But a lot of those turnovers weren't directly Jackson Arnold's fault. As a matter of fact, one of those that was called an interception at the time was turned over at the end of the game and called a fumble return for a touchdown because Farouk caught the ball, possessed the ball, then fumbled the ball. It popped up in the air. Arizona took it back and went back for a touchdown. That brings me to my next point. That right there, that one play, turned that game from being an Oklahoma blowout into an Oklahoma loss. I've never seen an enormous swing like that in quite some time in the game. Y'all went from being up 3 scores to only leading by 3 and ended up losing the game because a couple of turnovers late when you were pressing to try to come back and win the game with a true freshman. I don't care who it is, true freshman, rookie in the NFL, you're going to have your growing pains. The great Peyton Manning, I think the first year with the Colts, they were like something like 3-13 or something really astronomically bad. So y'all going to have to be a little more patient. And then you got people in here, and I got screenshots, but I'm not going to pop them up. I started to do it, but then I don't want to get people getting mad and unsubscribing to it because that's already happening. By the way, if you unsubscribe to a channel because someone criticizes your team or maybe disagrees with you, you're pretty much a coward to me, and I'm glad you unsubscribed. You should allow for disagreements. That makes for great chatter, as long as it's not getting personal and people taking personal shots at people. You should allow for disagreements and not unsubscribe to a channel just because you don't always agree with them 100%. But I digress from that. Another note I got down here, and I know y'all get tired of me bringing this up. People are getting tired of hearing me talk about Linky Boy, old Lincoln Riley. But no coach has ever had to come into a program that was completely gutted of its offensive prowess by the former head coach. People brought up the fact that the Arizona head coach has had a great first year, 9-3, or 10-3 at this point, something like that. And Northwestern's coach, first year coach, come in and took over for Fitzgerald, and he done well. But neither one of those coaches had to deal with the first ever year of the immediate transfer portal to go along with their former predecessor gutting their program and undermining them on the way out. So I think that this is still having somewhat of an effect on the Oklahoma program. Whether or not people want to admit that or not, I think it's still having a very profound effect on the Oklahoma program. And I think after Brent Venables gets a couple more of these recruiting classes in that have been top 10 every single year, unlike somebody else that said you couldn't recruit to Oklahoma. In fact, he couldn't recruit to Oklahoma. We know who we're talking about. I think we need to pump the brakes a little bit and think that maybe our expectations are a little bit unrealistic at this point. Let him get a few more of those recruiting classes in and get his own stamp on the program, especially with all this stuff going on before he comes in, all these extenuating circumstances that not many coaches have ever had to deal with. Now, taking into account also that you're going in your first year in the SEC, I think it's a good time to be changing coaches right now, going into the SEC. Which brings me to my next point. Next year, Oklahoma may be a better team overall. They may be a completely better team overall next year and not win as many games as they did this year. Now, I know it's not going to make a lot of Oklahoma Sooners happy, and nobody likes to lose or digress from win totals. But going into the first year of the SEC, there's going to be some growing pains, in my opinion. And if Oklahoma goes 8-4, or at best 9-3 next year, don't start calling for Brent Venables' head. And what I really get mad about, and here's my other point, one of my other points here, is people that continue to bring up Bob Stoops as a replacement for Brent Venables. Why? I don't get it. Why would you think Bob Stoops, and it's some outlandish to me things that were being said, and I'm not trying to insult anybody. I'm not trying to piss anybody off. Like I said, please don't unsubscribe just because I disagree with your comments. But saying that Brent Venables should step down to defensive coordinator and Bob Stoops comes in, that's just unrealistic. That's not going to happen. And I don't understand why people think that Bob Stoops is so much better than Brent Venables. Brent Venables has only had 2 years of head coaching experience right now. Only 2. And he didn't have to deal, and Bob Stoops didn't have to deal with the kind of shit that Brent Venables is dealing with or had to deal with. Bob Stoops come in after a pretty atrocious regime under John Blake, that is true. But he didn't have his program gutted, and he didn't have to deal with immediate transfers. Back then, people had to sit out a year, so it deterred them from doing that and gutting your team. Bob Stoops only won 1 national championship. And what was it? I'm not sure. I have the number in front of me, so don't get mad if I get it wrong. But what was he as coach for, 16, 17 years? And only had 1 national title. So he was a good coach, but he ain't as great as y'all try to make him out to be, that much greater than Brent Venables. You haven't really given Brent Venables a fair shake yet, with all the extenuating circumstances that he's had to overcome. It is probably 4th on the list of all-time Oklahoma coaches. I mean, you got Barry Switzer, Bud Wilkinson, and Benny Owens. All those coaches, to me, were better than Bob Stoops. And I got a question for y'all. It's been irking me a little bit. So I was doing some history on Oklahoma and Benny Owens because it was brought up to me that Benny Owens was the founder of Oklahoma football. I think back then, Benny Owens, they just didn't have anybody to compare him to yet. I think the real father of Oklahoma football and being a blue blood was Bud Wilkinson. And I don't understand why, I can understand naming something after Benny Owens, but why isn't Bud Wilkinson's name on that stadium in some form or fashion? Why isn't Owens Wilkins Field or Owens Wilkins Stadium or Owens Field at Bud Wilkinson Stadium? Some variation of that. Now, I know Barry Switzer has like a building or something named after him, but there's nothing named after Bud Wilkinson. And to me, he's the real father of the blue blood status of Oklahoma football. And I only bring all that up to say that, you know, to try to make Brent Venables live up to that already in just 2 years, I just think it's completely unfair, especially, once again, with the extenuating circumstances that Brent Venables had to endure coming in as the head coach of Oklahoma. And that's all I got to say about that. You guys and gals, drop in the comment section. Tell me what you think about all this. Also, there's a little heart down here. If you don't mind, if you're not too pissed off at me right now, a little heart with a $1 million sign in the middle. If you want to make a one-time donation, smash that heart. Throw a few dollars in the coffers. Also, as I said earlier, you can join the Outlaw Posse. It's not $2.99 a month, 75 cents a week. You'll get your badge. You'll be deputized. Possibly be one of the random Four Horsemen shout-outs, as well as be the comment of the day, which, by the way, is the comment of the day. I almost forgot. Glad I reminded myself. The comment of the day goes to Mike Happy. When these grant rights contracts were negotiated, good or bad, and signed, no one could have foreseen the NCAA's weak-kneed attitude toward conference realignment. It turns out just like the stupid Jimbo Fisher contract. It will cost your ass to get out of it. I really don't blame FSU or Clemson, but life's a bitch, and you got to pay for your mistakes. I hope the SEC or the Big Ten are smarter than the NCAA, who should be disbanded. And that's the comment of the day from Mike Happy, and that was in reference to the Florida State spurned by the SEC and Big Ten podcast. Like, share, comment, and subscribe to this channel. And as always, KMCA to all the other teams. Class is now officially dismissed.